So, back in my late teens and early to mid 20s, I became obsessed with self improvement. Like a lot of young men these days, I started reading Jordan Peterson and Robert Greene and Mark Manson and all of these kind of grifters. And, that was, as far as I was concerned, the only real outlet to learning about yourself and improving as a young man. And when things got hard, I would go see a therapist or a psychologist. But ultimately, I felt like they were never really equipped to deal with the challenges that I was facing. And often I found therapy and psychology to be a temporary band-aid. Something I would do for a couple of months, it would help a little bit, but it just never created the lasting transformation, healing, change, or improved self-understanding that I was actually seeking. Eventually, I became pretty disillusioned with it all, and I realized that I needed to seek out something alternative, and I found that in men's work, which are specific spaces curated in particular to help men develop themselves and overcome emotional roadblocks that stop them from moving forward in their lives. In other words, men's work spaces are specifically created to help men heal. And now, with the benefit of hindsight, I can see all the reasons why the contemporary approach to self-improvement doesn't really work as well as it could. Because it's really just you, yourself, and I. It's you trapped in a room with some books, some podcasts, a cold shower, and at best, maybe a psychologist or a therapist who, as much as they might mean well, and as much as that is a very useful tool to help you grow and learn and heal, they ultimately can't bring the level of vulnerability that's actually required to relate to another human being, often because of practitioner and client privilege, confidentiality, and professionalism. It's for that reason that I feel compelled to share my experiences with men's work, because I feel like men's work offers an alternative to conventional or contemporary self-improvement that a lot of young men could really, really benefit from. So I'm going to cover 3 key tenets of men's work and why I believe those 3 key tenets are transformational and quite distinct from the common modern approach to healing. So the first one is shared vulnerability and community. Men's work spaces, when they're done right, are almost exclusively done in groups. And as a result, when you enter a men's work space, you are entering a space where you're going to witness other men sharing with open vulnerability, the challenges and unique struggles that they are facing. And what's really interesting about this is that you'll see men from completely different backgrounds and across many different age groups with different stories and different struggles that you might not be able to relate to on a superficial level. But what you will see is that they all carry the weight of those challenges in the exact same way you do, often through unskillful coping mechanisms, as well as years, if not decades, of unprocessed shame, guilt, grief, and anger, emotions that eat away at all of us over time. In my experience, witnessing this was very, very deeply liberating and healing, because rather than just being told that what I was going through was really common, I got to actually see it for my own eyes across multiple generations of men. And what was really interesting was seeing how they all carried the weight of their experiences the exact same way that I did, which is just something you're not going to get from therapy or psychology, at least most of the time. So that's pillar number 1, community and cohort, or shared co-regulation. Another key tenet of men's work is the pillar of feeling and processing rather than solving. So often when you enter a men's workspace, one of the key agreements that you make with everyone in that space is that when a man expresses a challenge or something he's going through, you are asked to withhold your natural tendency to want to offer a solution. And the reason this is really, really important is because men, unlike women, we don't have the same intuitive capacity for healing that women do. We're much more pragmatic, goal-oriented creatures, and we want a system, a goal, and a framework to achieve the things we want in life or to overcome challenges. And while this model of thinking is extremely important to help a man develop competence, leadership, and reliability, which are all very admirable traits that every man needs to develop. They often get in the way of healing because the moment we try and deal with something, we immediately try and come up with a solution to it. And this isn't the way the world of emotions and trauma work. The baggage that we carry in our lives needs to be felt in its full weight and witnessed in its full weight by other people before it naturally untangles and dissipates in the system over time. So when you enter a men's workspace, rather than sharing and then immediately being bombarded with people trying to solve and diagnose your issue as much as they're coming from a good place, you instead come in with the comfort and security to know that you can just share and be witnessed in that vulnerability without immediately having to jump to the solution or the outcome that you might be looking for. Finally, another key tenet of men's workspaces is its connection to myth, legend, and eldership. For eons, across almost every society, tribe, culture, and religion, we've used myth and legend and the stories associated with them to actually help young people step into adulthood. They served as psychological maps to help people understand where they sit in a broader evolution and recognize that where they're currently at isn't the end of the story. It's just a necessary part of it. So we used to use myth and legend in our cultures, our tribes, and our societies to help initiate young men and women into the roles that they would ultimately need to fulfill within a given tribe or a given community. Take, for instance, the story of Percival the Knight. It's a 12th century legend about a young boy whose mother hides him away in the forest to keep him protected and isolated from the world of chivalry and knighthood that ultimately caused the demise of her late husband, the king of the realm. In that story, Percival leaves the forest and then undergoes trials and tribulations that are driven by his obsession with heroism and grandeur. And it's only through failure that he eventually is initiated into a more mature model of manhood and responsibility. However, none of that would have taken place had Percival not left the forest to begin with. And so at least the initial part of the story is a metaphor for the need for a young man to step away from the womb and to disconnect from his mother in a healthy way so that he can develop his own self-identity. In other words, the story of Percival the Knight actually begins with mummy issues. And that's just one example. There are so many other myths and legends for both men and women that we used for this exact purpose. These stories aren't just fun little trinkets. They serve as roadmaps to help people understand where they sit in a broader journey and appreciate that where they're currently at and all the issues and struggles that come with that is actually a healthy and necessary part of their wider evolution. As a result, it helps people navigate the challenges they're facing in life with some grace. Men's workspaces understand this importance of myth and legend and employ it tactfully to help men learn how to honor and revere where they're at in relation to their culture, their ancestors, and their lineage, rather than living in disconnected contradiction to that. What's more, all of this teaching and guidance takes place across multiple generations of men in men's workspaces. So you'll meet men in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and even beyond that. And what that does is it pulls in the shared wisdom of multiple generations rather than just one or two generations who are going to be, of course, limited in their capacity to see the bigger picture. And you can really see how this could be contrasted to a lot of the modern self-improvement space online, at least, where it's just dudes in their 20s and 40s trying to teach other dudes in their 20s and 40s what they ought to care about without the eldership that's necessary to contain any kind of wisdom or long-term thinking that we used to have in our communities. In summary, these key pillars of men's work being community, feeling and processing, mythology, and eldership create a really potent elixir that has helped me tremendously in my own life. By being involved with men's work, I've had access to world-class mentors, guides, and healers that have given me wisdom that I would have never gained through conventional self-help or therapy. It's allowed me to see the bigger picture and navigate the mystery and challenge of life with a lot more grace. Something that a lot of young men these days are desperately fucking yearning for. And that is why men's work saved my life and could potentially save yours too. Thanks for listening, guys. I hope this helps someone, and don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps me out on some nonchalant type shit.